Hello. This is the third and finale part of a most unlikely collection by Neon Zangetsu, for now. Link will be in the description. All author's notes have been removed between chapters. Also, any NSFW scene will be removed. This part will cover chapter 41 to 55. A most unlikely decision Naruto gazed upon at the Holy Grail. It was hideous, ugly, twisted and tainted. Everything he'd hoped it wouldn't be. He'd wanted to believe, to ignore the truth, the protests of it all. He'd slain 6 servants in 6 nights to get here, and yet now that he stood before it, now that he saw what lurked within, he recoiled. Even now, wounded as he was, he could see what was wrong with it. This wasn't something he could fix, something anything could ever hope to repair. No, the word escaped in a dry rasp. That can't be right. He wanted to save his village. That was all. To undo a future where everything went wrong at the hands of the Akatsuki and Pain. To that end, he had fought and fought and fought, then fought some more. Pushed through his fears and doubts, not allowing himself to hesitate, not even allowing himself to love. He had killed. He had killed and killed and killed until his hands were dyed red to their very wrists. Because it was simple, easy, rather. Easier to listen to his master and just crash through the opposition like the class he encompassed. He had fought. He had betrayed. He had triumphed. Now even his master lay dead at his feet, bleeding out behind him. And yet, now that he looked upon the Grail, his heart quailed in his chest. Was this what he'd fought for? It couldn't be. It shouldn't be. It must not be, but it was. Any wish made on this thing would be tainted. Any plea given would unleash an unspeakable evil into this world. He had to destroy it. Blue eyes sparked into livid molten gold. His right hand clenched with chakra, conjuring up a Rasengan. Don't, Berserker. It crooned at him, its voice the darkest seduction. I can give you everything you want. Naruto took a deep breath to steady himself and closed his eyes. Everything I've ever wanted, huh? Yes. The silken words washed over him, clung to him like black tar as countless images oozed through his thoughts. Release me, become my champion, and you could be as a god. Reality itself would be at your fingertips. You would possess power unimaginable, be loved by countless women. Become the ruler of this world, an emperor beyond compare. Your children would outnumber the very stars themselves. All shall fear you and rejoice. You need never be alone again. It was that last word that ultimately broke the spell. Alone, huh? He stood and faced the Grail no, all the world's evils. I'm used to being alone. Loneliness is an old friend. Fool, I offer you hope and you would spit in my face? Don't need your hope. His right arm swung back, feeding more chakra into his palm. You said you'd give me everything I want. It swelled in his grasp, growing larger with each passing moment until it dwarfed him in its all-encompassing light. Well, right now, I only want one thing. It pleaded with him one last time. I could give you everything. His life flashed behind his eyelids. They snapped open. Let the madness end. Then die. His attack struck straight and true, puncturing the wicked thing before him. The Holy Grail burst. Black mud washed over Naruto, thick and cloying. He closed his eyes against it, and with it came sweet oblivion. Chapter 42. A most unlikely Maya Naruto staggered out of the mud. It clung to him as he emerged from the mire that had once been a park, this tainted filth of the destroyed Holy Grail, and yet it didn't touch him. Strange as that might sound, there was a reason for that duality. He could feel it on his skin, dragging at his bare upper torso and sloughing off his shoulders as she staggered to freedom, but it didn't touch him. Not his soul, not the spark that made him, well, him. His mind was his own, keenly aware of each passing moment, the chill of the night air, and the faint tingle of his exposed skin. The war was over. No sacrifice, no victory, but no defeat either. In the wake of neither, he experienced only peace. He had destroyed the corrupted Grail in a single cataclysmic blast and drowned in the black mud that came pouring out. Yet he hadn't died. Somehow he'd survived and been granted a new body. A new life, leaving all the trappings of the old behind. Huh, neat. Rather liked the sound of that. No more chaos, no more war, no more people telling him what to say, how to do things, or who to be. Really, he could be someone else. Anyone he wanted to be. He started walking. Chapter 43. A most unlikely samurai. A new servant emerged from the smoke. Ilya took one look at them and scowled, lips pursing in disbelief. Where had she gone wrong? This wasn't the one she'd wanted at all. Because this was wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. All wrong. Where was Heracles? She'd done everything properly. It should have been him. So who in blazes was this? Whoever he was, he certainly didn't look like a berserker. Bright blue eyes blinked back at her, framed by whiskered cheeks and tawny blonde hair. He wore a long kimono open at the chest, tattered and red, serving as a stark contrast to slender black sheath at his side. A slender reed lay clasped tightly between his lips, although he turned and spat the latter out as he looked at her. Did I really just get pulled by a brat? Oh, come on. To his credit, the newcomer looked just as displeased to see her as she was him. Of all the rotten luck, the little Einsburn absolutely hissed. Are you calling me short? Her blonde servant scowled right back at her. Well, I ain't calling you for supper. Must, not, kill. She was stuck with him until the end of this war. If he died, she'd never achieve her goals. What are you then? Saber? Assassin? You can't be a berserker, not when you look like that. Her remark got a snort out of him. Assassin? Me? I am literally the least stealthy person. His lips pursed as he seemed to consider something only he could see. Well, I am a berserker, but I'm technically also a saber. It's complicated. He touched one hand to the side of his head with a sigh. This is such a pain, I don't even want to fight. Any chance you could break our contract and let me leave? I was having a nice nap. She absolutely twitched. I'm guessing that's a no. Well, guess you're stuck with me then. Good luck, Ilya screamed into her hands. Why me? Chapter 44. A most unlikely pact. Misery, misery, misery. That's what you've chosen, you noble fool. Matuzuken poked the dying servant with his cane. The smouldering corpse didn't budge where it knelt, though it did rasp out a pained little breath. Remarkable. No other warrior would still drew after facing that golden archer. Ear was a vicious attack. By all rights, it was a miracle Assassin still drew breath. Sakura had been gifted a powerful pawn in this war. And what had she done with him? Nothing. No, less than nothing. Worse now, his beloved granddaughter was gone well beyond his grasp. With her absence, everything had fallen apart. All his plans ruined, all his schemes for naught. I'll have to start anew, he groused, glaring at the wrecked grail. No matter. I'll find that girl, and when I do... A hand latched onto his wrist. Still alive, are we? Assassin stared up at him with his lone eye, blue light shining through the mud that caked his body. And then he smiled. It was not a nice smile. It stirred a nameless dread in the old worm. You ever hear the one about the suicide jutsu? Horror dawned in Zuken's black heart. No, Naruto grinned at him. No. It goes a little something like this. No. The world inverted. Black light, could light be black, filled the ruined cavern and swallowed the two of them up. Matuzuken died as he lived, grasping for light and failing to find it. The worm fell into darkness. Chapter 45. A most unlikely body. Legends are often strange things. Twisted by time, stories of heroes often evolve. Until one day, they barely resemble what they truly were. 0.0. You must be joking. Naruto clenched the rights of his right hand into a fist. The bloody digits responded well enough, he felt. Better than his old one. Sure, he'd have to test them in a few fights, but beggars couldn't be choosers. It felt good to be young again, back in his prime no less. The full intensity of his power thrumming through his body with all the fiery fury of some mad demon god. Speaking of which, why? Did he have 4 bloody hands? He'd never had those before, even with his chakra arms. So, he turned to face the frozen figure standing before him. What gives? Why was I summoned like this? They trembled a little at that, almost quivering with despair. You're not Sukuna? His brow furrowed. The hell's a Sukuna? No, never mind. Don't tell me. His new arms responded well enough. He planted one on their shoulder, holding them in place. With the second, he drove a fist into the solar plexus of his new master, doubling them over. Utilizing the other two, he took a hold of their startled face, reared back, and crunch! It was a very nice headbutt, he mused. Knocked them right out. They slumped at his feet with a bloody gurgle. He could hardly kill them now, could he? They'd gone through all this trouble to bring him back from the dead. That would be rude. Still, he hadn't fallen so far as to serve someone like that. And if 6 other servants had been summoned, well, he walked away with a whistle. Time for a massacre. Chapter 46. A Most Unlikely Brother. Can I borrow your reality marble? Archer blinked. He blinked hard. Oh, you're absolutely insane. I'm so glad you think so. The servant before him, even now he didn't know what the bastard's class was, pivoted in the empty hall and sketched a deep sweeping bow, one hand before his chest. After all, insanity is the best sanity, wouldn't you agree, little brother? His right eye began to twitch. That's not a thing. It absolutely isn't a thing. And I'm no brother of yours. Well, Whiskered Cheeks dimpled in a Cheshire grin, you are, but you aren't. At least not this iteration of you. Emir swept a hand through his pale hair and resisted the urge to shoot him. Master wouldn't like that. Maybe just one arrow. His fingers twitched, itching for action. Damn Chaldea and its multiple timelines. He wouldn't deny that the servant before him was strong. He'd taken a dragon down with just one punch on the last mission after all. But he was so damn clingy. Worse, he refused to identify himself beyond his name, a feat few servants were capable of given the summoning system. He was a Mizitari, an enigma. And he was driving him mad. Oh, come on, Shirou. The baffling blonde clasped his hands, still grinning. Just hear me out, for old time's sake. You haven't even told me what you're planning to do. A pause followed, and he flushed as the servant before him grinned in triumph. Oi! Don't grin and call me that. Tosaka would never let him live it down. It's just Emiya now. Quick as a flash, the blonde released his hand and palmed his own face. Ah, I see you've entered your rebellious phase. Edgy, too. He shook his head side to side, blonde bangs swaying. Whatever happened to that good boy that followed me and Kiritsugu everywhere, The one who wanted to save everyone he could? Archer still was that someone, but he'd never say admit it to him. As I told you, I've never met you. Then why did you call me Naruto? Because that annoying caster mentioned your name. Really? Yes, really. A beat of silence passed between them. Pity. The blonde peeked at him through his fingers, warm blue eyes gone cold as ice. And here I was hoping you might remember something at least. You know, Sakura and I named our son after you. Well, we called him Shiro, not Shiro, but you get the gist. His eyes bulged. Sa? What's wrong, Shiro? There it was, that damn smile of his. Cat got your tongue? Yes, and his throat besides. Want to hear what we named our daughter? Critical damage. For a moment there, it felt like he'd died and come back to life. Anyway, the blonde beamed, startling him once more. I'm gonna go mess with the king of heroes. Interested. Against his better judgment, he actually was. Anything to knock Gilgamesh down a peg. I'm listening. Great. Naruto clapped his hands. I just need to borrow your reality marble. His lips pursed in a frown. That again? No means no. Naruto grabbed his right hand. Sorry, wasn't asking Tilda. Chapter 47. A most unlikely remark. Morgan was a berserker. She knew that, of course. It was her class, the form by which she had been summoned. At the time, she'd resigned herself to it. The dearth of reason was the punishment by which she lived. It grated her at times, knowing she had been bested back in the Lost Belt, that all her efforts had been for naught. She'd tried so hard, got so far, but in the end, it didn't even matter. Weren't those the lyrics to a song? She'd heard Master hum it despondently once during a mission. Regardless, it didn't change the fact that she had been defeated, then resummoned to this ghastly place. How it galled her so. Worse, she was sure she hadn't been summoned correctly. Because, you see, there were other memories in her head. Memories she hadn't experienced. Memories she knew weren't hers, because she'd never experienced a single one of them before. Never seen, never known, yet lived all the same. Memories of another Morgan. Those memories had contaminated her, flooding her with all sorts of awful emotions, feelings she'd thought long since suppressed. They were everywhere. Everything, everyone, all at once, and try as she might, she could not be rid of them. She remembered warm arms wrapping around her hips as someone held her close, a hand stroking the small of her back as she wept, the sensuous, sinful sensation of someone's body pressed against hers and the bliss that followed, the sweet hum of a lullaby as she fell asleep. Sometimes, in the waking moments just before dawn, she could almost see his face, blue eyes, blonde hair, whiskered cheeks. There had been a child, too. Hadn't there? She remembered her oh so clearly, that pale little girl, the mewling life held in her arms, Everything but her name. Her name, her name, her name! Why couldn't she remember her name? These memories angered Morgan, infuriated her, destroyed her. Why had this Morgan experienced the happiness she so craved? Why did it feel like she was her, even when she wasn't? And so she tamped them down. She strangled them. She sought to snuff them out. And then, one day, she saw him wandering the halls. She took him in at a glance. Bright eyes, blonde hair, whiskered cheeks, the slightly tired slouch of his shoulders, and the gnarled black staff he leaned upon. But he wasn't alone. Even as she hesitated, she noticed someone near him. A small child held his free hand, babbling happily at him. A child with her hair and his eyes. She wore royal regal robes of amber etched with black and blue, and her face, oh gods, her face. She looked just like her baby, her daughter, but she wasn't. She never could be. Could she? Something cracked in Morgan's cold, black, betrayed heart. Unbidden, she felt her right hand rise of its own accord. Husband? The world tumbled past her lips. It was like flicking a switch. The tired blonde jolted. Not so the child. She whipped around, face alight with girlish delight. Mama Tilda. You're here too? Those words shattered Morgan. Destroyed her. Remade her. Well, there was only one thing for it. She jumped them. Chapter 48, A Most Unlikely Knife. I will kill you. Death came for the King of Heroes. Ha! Death was but another foe for him to crush. And yet he saw it in the glint of his adversary's weapon. It was a black knife, sharp and twisted, made for one purpose and one alone. Gilgamesh saw his own end reflected in the metal, that blackest of blades, and for a moment, just a moment, he felt a flicker of fear. Was this fear? No. Nay. Never. Preposterous? How could he fear this wretch? He was half dead. He'd blown one of his bloody arms off. He feared nothing. He was the King of Heroes, the Lord of all. None could stand against him. His gait bridled behind him, ready to wipe this foolish foe away, him and that foolish Einsburn girl he protected. Then he'd take her heart, and they would be done with all this nonsense. Why did he feel cold? They say the pen is mightier than the sword. By that very logic, could not a knife better than any blade, then? He looked down, baffled to find the black blade buried in his chest. As he looked on aghast, it sank deep. His eyes bulged wide. You filthy mongrel. Naruto had no words for him. No, Assassin twisted the blade, blue eyes ablaze. Pain surged up the chest of Gilgamesh. Darkness claimed him. Chapter 49. A most unlikely? Monster. Naruto took the accusation without flinching as he ran a hand through his bloody hair. No use. He'd need to throw himself into a river after this. His body was caked with viscera and gore, stained with filth. It would take him hours to scrub himself clean, assuming his master let him. Most likely that annoying priest would just throw him at another enemy. After all, he was an aberration. A mistake. The servant who should not exist. An abomination so warped by his legend as to become unrecognizable. A most unlikely monster. Being a servant really did suck sometimes, you know. And that was before he looked to his erstwhile ally. I never claimed to be anything else, Karlach. Berserker slugged him in the face. He took the punch without complaint, because it was exactly what he deserved. A tooth whistled free from his jaw. He felt it regrow in his mouth with a painful crack. Anger sparked in him and his noble phantasm with it. He stomped both down, burying them deep. Is there a problem? Of course there's a problem, Avenger. She grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him, her touch searing his skin. You tore their bloody head off. I had that fight handled. I didn't need your help. He eyed the head of Gilgamesh, even now dissolving into motes of golden dust at their feet. The king's face was frozen in horrific confusion. Archer deserved better than the end he got. Even the King of Heroes shouldn't have gone out like that. It had been a good fight, a close fight. Could have gone either way, really. For all her anger and bluster, Karlach might have won too before he jumped in. Her pain tolerance was off the charts after all. Tokiomi would be furious at the loss of his servant. But he'd made a promise to her master. Please don't let Karlach die. And even now, in this wretched form, he always kept his promises. No matter what. Enough, Berserker. He batted her hands down with a sigh. We're leaving. Karlach flinched, eyeing the mess they made. Do we have to? More. Let's go check on Astarion. She whined a little. I hate that assassin. I know you do, but he's our ally for now. Come on. He left and she followed after him like a kicked puppy. Another fracture etched itself into his black, monstrous heart. How long would it be before it shattered completely, he wondered. Chapter 50. A most unlikely twist, saber-skewered berserker. It was a clean strike through and through. Her blade burst out his back as she nailed him to a mighty oak tree. His body shuddered once, his eyes widened, and he died. Until he didn't. His eyes snapped open and a hand closed around her face, clawed fingers biting into her visage. He flung her away, seemingly ignorant of Excalibur still wedged in his chest. She alighted in a rough crouch and watched in muted horror as her dead adversary recovered. His wounds closed, the great gaping tear in his torso sealed, trapping her blade within. "Monster, just how many lives do you have?" Berserker didn't deign to answer. He ripped the blade free from his chest in a shower of gore, grunt as he healed again, then held it out to her. Rather than hold onto her blade, he approached and held it out to her. Eyes of cold blue stone regarded her, deep and fathomless like an endless ocean, and the horrors within. And then, adding insult to injury, he dropped Excalibur at her feet. 2 words parted her lips. "Try again." "You fiend!" He beckoned to her, standing by as she picked up her treasure sword. "See?" Mordred flung up her arms with a triumphant cackle. "I told you he was a damn zombie," Saber reared back. Not this time, King of Knights." Clenched knuckles barreled into her face and launched her across the town. Chapter 51, a most unlikely teaser. "I'm gonna knock you out." Foolishness. Assassin hefted his blade. "Thou art a persistent wretch, berserker." "I grant thee that. However." A fist barreled through King Hassan's guard, blasted his blade aside, and crunched through his mask. The so-called Assassin of Blue struck the ground, bounced once, and crashed into building. Mordred had a very nice view of it from where she lay. Totally worth losing an eye. "I'm sorry," Berserker hummed, popping his now dislocated hand back into place. "Did I make you lose your concentration?" A low rumble of annoyance pierced the gloom. "Very well. I shall take thee seriously." To his credit, Naruto, damn zombie, waited until Assassin emerged from the ruin before he jumped him. His fist flicked out, grabbing his blade, wrenching it aside. With the other, he reeled back and started swinging, 1 punch for every word. "Mama said, knock! You! Out!" The last punch knocked King Hassan clear out of town and drilled him into a mountain. Mordred laughed herself silly, legs kicking in the air. "You... definitely worth it." Chapter 52. This chapter is just an update. Chapter 53. A most unlikely kiss. Kiss me. Naruto's brow shot into his hair. Mordred watched that. It, him, his eyes, hell, all of him, body coiled tighter than a spring. Damn it. She missed her armor. She felt naked in this get-up and she'd had entirely too much to drink. Her sole consolation was that he seemed just as tipsy as she. His whiskered cheeks flushed, eyes half-lidded as he leaned back against the table. Damn zombie always looked good, no matter what he wore. Wasn't fair. "You are..." He paused once to reorient himself and find his words. "Want to run that by me again?" She shifted her legs under the table, hitched up her red dress and crawled into his lap, all but pressing him against the booth, nose brushing his as she leaned in. No one in the pub noticed them. Good. Great. Grand. If someone interrupted her, she was absolutely going to die from sheer embarrassment, or kill someone. Wasn't sure which. This close, she could feel his breath on her face, see his eyes flit down to her lips. She growled at him. "I said, kiss me, you bass!" Her words cut off in a muffled groan as he surged up to kiss her. His mouth met hers as she grabbed onto him, locking her arms around behind his neck as his hands settled on her hips. Chapter 54. A most unlikely brush. Need help? Jeanne craned her neck back and refrained from smiling. Ever since her ascension into this state, ever since her hair had become this long, pale, ashen-white mess and her eyes a molten gold, she found her emotions a great deal more volatile. Among other things she dare not speak of in pleasant company. A saint she may no longer, but she still had her morals, even if they were a bit looser than usual. It was to be expected, of course. She'd forsaken one class and become another, but at the end of the day, she was still herself. Berserker Naruto offered her the tool, still smiling. He, at least, hadn't changed, despite his ascension. Jeanne eyed the hairbrush warily, looked back to the mirror, considered the ruined, tangled knots in her hair. All her own efforts had been for naught. Jack had only made it worse. Her brow furrowed further as she bit her lip. Sighed now. Please be gentle. Of course, Tild. Smoothly he began with her head, nudging away bits of ash and soot. Then he started stroking away at her scalp, with a care one wouldn't expect from a creature of his class. But though his face hadn't changed, he'd ascended too, hadn't he? His skills spoke for themselves. Was it warm in here? Or was that just her? Surely her imagination. She focused on her reflection, refusing to look at him. It availed her naught. Naruto whistled while he worked at first, but soon enough his voice became a gentle hum. Once he finished with her hair, she demanded he massage her shoulders. He didn't question her, not once, though he would have been well within his rights. After all, she was no longer a ruler, and he most certainly was. He could have said no, told her off easily. But he didn't. Why was that? Instead, he bid her to lay down before the mirror. Soon enough, he had her resting on her stomach, divested of her armor. His hands went to work, seeking the knots in her shoulders, then her back, lower now, lower still, so much so that she found herself biting her knuckles to restrain herself from crying out. It was just a massage. It shouldn't feel this good, but it did. It absolutely did. Heaven. Bliss. Pleasure. His hands paused. Do you want me to stop? She bit her fingers and shook her head furiously, pale hair thrashing behind her. No, but I'm already at your waist. Keep going. After only a moment's pause, his hands delved lower. That strong touch soon had her squirming where she lay, thighs rubbing together. Jean's face began to grow warm as he continued his work. He had her moaning in less than a minute. Chapter 55. A most unlikely sword. The sword burned. It seared his hands like nothing else. Or perhaps that was the pain he'd suffered in pulling it from the stone. The very blade seemed to fight him, resisting his grasp, until quite suddenly it didn't. Perhaps it sensed his quiet determination, his steely resolve, the willingness to sacrifice everything he held dear for this one singular moment. He nearly laughed outright, the sword in the stone. Everyone knew the legend. Even he had, back in his world, before he'd come here. Never in all his wildest dreams did he think he'd actually touch it. Do or do not, they say. There is no try. He hadn't tried at all. He'd done it. And now? The world changed. Blue eyes crinkled in pain, whiskered cheeks dimpled as he released a pained breath. And stood. He'd never been meant to draw it in the first place. And yet he had. He did it anyway, if only to spare her a horrifying fate. Merlin blinked back at him, quietly alarmed. Beside him, Morgan tilted her head. As he looked on, she smiled.